And so there's some really cool technologies out there for using, for instance, capsules to do sampling as the capsule passes through the digestive tract so that we have a better idea of what's going on in the small intestine. And then you get to the colon, and this is the community that's just so incredibly, densely packed, doing there's a ton of metabolic activity happening there, and a bunch of interaction with the host. And that's the community that's really the best studied. Part of the reason for that is because stool is so easy to obtain compared to, for instance, something in the stomach or small intestine. And that stool is fairly representative. We know from studies that have been done using colonoscopies and so forth, stool is fairly representative of what's happening in the colon. So dense, super exciting community, but also the best studied just because it's the easiest to access in the lower digestive tract.
Very interesting. I imagine these microbiota have to get in there at some point. Are microbiota seen in newborns? In other words, where do they come from? And dare I ask, what direction do they enter the body? Or is it from multiple directions?
Yeah, great question. So, one of the burning questions that we can come back to at the end of this is, where does our microbiota come from? Because it is this kind of, existential question in the field, like where is this community assembling from? And the reason that it's such an interesting question is that, a fetus, when it's in the womb, that's actually a sterile environment. There have been some studies that have looked at whether there are microbes in the womb and microbes colonizing the fetus at that point. There's some debate about this, but overall, it looks like that's not a big part of the equation of microbial colonization. And so each time an infant is born, it's this new ecosystem. It's like an island rising up out of the ocean that has no species on it. And suddenly there's this like land rush for, this open territory. And so we know that infants go through this really complex process of microbiota assembly over the first days, weeks, months, years of life. And then, you get into switching to solid food 2 to 3 years of age. There are some changes in childhood, adolescence, working into adulthood, but that first, 0 to 1 year is a super dynamic time with really kind of stereotypical developmental changes in the gut microbiota that appear to have the possibility of going wrong and causing problems for infants in some instances. But if you step away from that extreme side of things going wrong, there also are a lot of different trajectories that developmental process can take because our microbiota is so malleable and so plastic, and those trajectories can be affected by all sorts of factors in early life. So an example is whether an infant is born by C-section or born vaginally. We know from beautiful work that's been done in the field that infants that are born by C-section actually have a gut microbiota that looks more like human skin than it does like either the birth canal, the vagina microbiota, or the mother's stool microbiota. Babies that are born through the birth canal have initial colonization of vaginal microbes and of stool microbes from their mother. And so just these first days, whether you're born by C-section or through natural childbirth, your gut microbiota looks very different. And then compound on top of that, whether you're breastfed or formula fed, whether your family has a pet or doesn't have a pet, whether you're exposed to antibiotics, there are all these factors that really can change that developmental process and really change your microbial identity eventually in life.